Welcome to another episode of Talking with Andrew and Chris. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Chris. And thanks again for joining us here on Talking with Andrew and Chris.
Welcome.
I love the mic clip there. It's like in those old it's like in an old recording. I was actually speaking with our good friend Jeremy, friend of the show, friend of Andrew and I. He's never been on the show, probably never will be on the show, although he's always welcome to be on the show. And we were talking
I just
about
talked to him today.
oh, you were?
Yeah, very briefly about football.
Oh yeah, you saw his Instagram story.
It made me chuckle. NFC least.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
pretty good.
So, speaking of Jeremy, at Jeremy Rampala, anywhere that matters, I was talking to him a couple days ago, and he was watching an old movie, a Vincent Price movie, considering it is
Oh.
spooky season, the godfather of horror, if you will. Jeremy was watching an old movie, and he's like, "Isn't it brilliant how they couldn't fix the clipping and the peaking of gain on certain moments back then, but it made it better. It made things better. And nowadays,
It's
people will
true.
almost pay for that kind of mix, that kind of master on a recording where they'll run it through old outboard hardware gear instead of doing the digital route because
Listen, you're
they want
telling
that.
me, listen, you're telling me that if you're up, you're late, you're scrolling on your phone late at night, you're looking at memes, and you come across a meme where it's like Sandstorm by Darude is playing over some insane video of something going on. And like throughout the video gets louder and louder, then all the way at the end it's so loud that it's just that's not hilarious. Like you gotta peaking is when used correctly, it's a powerful tool.
It can be comical too. I understand that. I thought that those memes were pretty funny for a little while when I thought bad music was good. Essentially, where it'd be like producers and they'd be like crank this mix up and they'd export it and then they'd export it again and again and it would just be like all in the red and it's such an
Yeah.
incoherable part of the song. But I guess I was more so talking about like a tasteful sort of like Steven Tyler on the high note of Dream On just slightly clips it. And it's like, how do you replicate that nowadays? You can't unless you're performing it live. And not many bands can do that. But, anyways, we're not here to speak about music today, believe it or
No.
not.
Today is all about the everything in between.
It is. Some would say the astral plane of in betweenness. I don't know if YouTube's okay with that. Who knows what they're okay with anymore? But we just said it. And yeah, guys,
Chris, I thought we
welcome.
said we weren't getting political on this show.
Dude, true. Sorry about that, man.
Yeah, we
Um,
apologize.
yeah, I didn't mean to offend anyone who's in purgatory, may have been in purgatory, or maybe going to purgatory. Totally stepped out of line there. But we're here to
Not
talk
cool.
about all things horror today.
Woo.
And I can already tell Andrew's feeling a little ghoulish on this one.
How could you tell?
So Andrew, man, we're just kind of gonna go off the cusp because next week is gonna be our horror and video games episode, which will be unveiling a new show that you'll be co-hosting across both of my podcasts, really putting the network in Talkin' Podcast Network. But
Wow.
today, I just kind of wanted to pick your brain because as I've kind of grown as a creator, I've kind of embraced other sides of the creative process, and we can go on this whole tangent of how my main love used to be music and it still is my main love, but there's like other loves too, mistresses if you will of art that are sort of tugging
Whoa.
and taking my time away from me. Yeah, man, I'm just trying to like really weave this spooky web, so work with me here as we traverse.
True, adultery is terrifying.
Exact Dude, shouts out Jesus. He got it. He understood it. But like what I'm trying to say is I have embraced other creative things that aren't just there's music in these things, but music isn't always the main focus. And one of those other loves it happens to be film and TV. And there's like a whole month where there's a certain style of film and TV that really thrives. In October, Andrew, I'm gonna put this one on you. Can you possibly venture to guess what I'm talking about?
Hmm. Is it the um expectation subverting kind of movie like a Christmas movie in October? Like Kringle?
Oh no, not that one. Close though.
Or did that come out in Christmas time?
It probably came out in Christmas time. I'm talking about all things. Say it with me now. Horror.
Horror.
Yeah, exactly. And we probably were in sync. There's just that wretched old audio delay. That
In my ears, we were in sync.
right, and that's all that matters. So yeah, man. I mean, before we jump into this, like, what is your relationship with horror?
Hmm. Well, as a kid, I didn't necessarily like being scared. Like, I wasn't trying. Like, I didn't like Courage the Cowardly Dog when I was growing up because I was like, yeah, like he's funny, but this shit is spooky. Like watching it now that Return the Slab thing, like not that scary, but like as like a 7-year-old, and then you see this like weird guy going Return the Slab. I'm like, I don't have the slab, dude. I'm sorry.
Dude,
So
yeah,
yeah, I wasn't super into it, but at the same time, I loved like I didn't like scary, but I loved spooky. Like Scooby Doo was my shit. Like
totally
regular Scooby Doo, a pup named Scooby Doo.
so true, man.
It's
Shaggy Doo,
all good.
or sorry, Scrappy Doo.
I mean, listen, Shaggy is an honorable do, so.
He is, he is. You know that's
But
the
uh,
thing,
but
dude.
even besides that, like the Winnie the Pooh Halloween episodes and stuff like that, come on. Every Halloween episodes are always good. Like
Yeah,
even
they
when I
are,
got older and like sitcoms like Friends and stuff like that, like Halloween episodes are always good.
dude. What about the Charlie Brown Halloween special?
The Great Pumpkin, dude.
The Great Pumpkin. I knew
The
you'd
Great
know.
Pumpkin.
It is phenomenal. I might actually watch that tonight. I just
Yeah,
got
and I
Apple TV
mean
Plus,
this.
humble brag, and it's included
Whoa.
in there. So
See, and that's a good example of like not just the spooky Halloween stuff, which like obviously that happens on Halloween and everything, but even just everything that happens in fall. Like fall is just such a nice time too. That in it, listen, I can't speak for the rest of the country. I haven't spent a lot of time in fall in other parts of America, but where we live, it feels like fall is like May if you're lucky the entire month of October, and then after that it's just cold, and it might even snow the day after Halloween or on Halloween, which it has done. And I'm not, I don't envy the Northwest, with even worse than that where it's snowing like October 1st, but
yeah, that
I
doesn't sound
like
fun.
fall movies and stuff because it gets me that taste of fall that where I live doesn't allow me to get for long enough.
Yeah, everything gets all pumpkin spiced, and just people start wearing
And
jeans in 50
shout out
degree
to
weather, and
Mikey, look at all the colors. The
all of them.
colors, dude.
You know, man, that you raised some good points in there. And before we go any further, I need to first off agree with you in the fact that like it's weird because when I was a little kid, I got exposed to Chucky when I was, I think, 5 years old. One of my older cousins snuck it over at a sleepover. Those classic
Mm.
things we all used to have.
Oh yeah,
And
dude.
we
When I
watched
was
it.
9, I accidentally watched it at a sleepover, and I was like, "What the hell is this, guys?
Yeah.
We need to change this. I'm terrified."
And it scarred me, and then from there on I was afraid of horror, and even certain episodes of the Goosebumps used to scare me. Forget
Mm-hmm.
about Courage the Cowardly Dog. There was no way I
Mm-mm.
was watching that. Sometimes you'd get caught and it was on, and I'd be so afraid
Dude,
I couldn't get out of bed, and I had to watch the full
I
episode, and
to
I was
this
like
day I've never watched
petrified.
Don't Look Under the Bed just because, or not Don't Look Under the Bed. That's that decom. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Is the show I've never watched from
Never watched
Nickelodeon.
it.
Never
Can't
watched
do
it.
it.
I was like, honestly, I am. So no thanks.
Yeah, and you also raise a really good point about, aside from just the pop culture side of things that come around this time of year, there is just the seasonal things that we get to really enjoy here where we live. I mean, I don't know about you, but I believe we have a true 4 season calendar here where we live without disclosing specific locations. But
I think so too. As much as I don't think that each season gets the same amount of time, we do experience all four.
right, and that is actually one of the bigger points I wanted to raise today, which is not all seasons are created equally, which is unfortunate,
Whoa.
but you need to. Have you been hearing that? I hate when sportscasters do that. They've started doing that this year. Not all
What?
players are created equally, Al. That's the thing about Kenyon Drake. Like I've been hearing it in every game, and I think it is just such an asinine way to speak. It's like, yeah, no, obviously one team is better than the other, obviously. But
Yeah.
anyways,
If every
not all
team was
seasons
equal, it wouldn't be exciting or
exactly.
or
Not
fun to
all
watch.
seasons are created equally, and we have some people in our area who think we only have 2 seasons, aka winter and aka summer. I don't even want to talk to those people. If that's you, I don't want to deal with that because
Right. I
you
listen, I
obviously are
can
just,
I,
you're dragging that winter pessimism around with you to 3 other seasons that it doesn't need to be there.
listen. I can see where they're coming from as someone who also doesn't necessarily love winter or love the cold. I don't mind it being cold. I hate when it's like so cold that just the air hurts your face when like you're walking. Like that's a little too cold for me. But Yeah, no, I mean we definitely get some spring buffer time in between when it's getting cold to when it gets like stupid hot, and then we definitely get some nice like just jacket weather before it gets to like the 0 degrees with -20-degree wind chill weather, which we do get, which is very the opposite of fun. I would describe it personally.
Yeah, but that's like parka weather, man. You know
Yeah,
you like your parkas.
listen, I like parkas, but not when I have to dress thinking like, okay, any exposed skin is gonna feel pain as soon as the air touches it. So let me try to cover up all of my skin and then also try to have my hair looking nice. Like, come on. It's
Gotcha.
too much.
Yeah. Speaking of parka, happy birthday, buddy. I know you might be listening to this one. By
Oh my
the
god, dude,
time
you're
this comes
so
out,
right. It won't
yeah,
be his birthday when this comes out, but
but
thank you for reminding me. Oh my
we'll have to send
gosh.
him this clip. You know what I mean? Even
Yeah,
though Chris doesn't quite send that text, he thinks about it a lot, and I wish all my friends understood that.
he
Just like I
does.
wish they understood my new love for not just music, aka Halloween time, the fall. And I wonder if it's because as we get older, we kind of wish that we did things when we were younger. And one thing I really wish was that I didn't just kind of sit in. I Not that I sat inside. I would go out on Halloween and we would trick or treat and stuff until a certain age. But then, like when we were teenagers, we really didn't even celebrate at all. We would just kind of hang out, play basketball, and have like
Mm-hmm.
a band practice and eat a bunch of
Right.
candy. But like we didn't even like think about it or celebrate it. And there were so many cool things that we could have been doing, especially in
Mm-hmm.
our area. We have the number one haunted hayride in the country, rated by Time Magazine, I believe, which is like that's a solid attraction. Another reason why the Hudson Valley is like a vacation spot, and I just never got into it until now. So I wonder if it's like, and I kind of want to ask you like why you think that is, because I can't quite figure it out. I just know that it used to be so unappealing, and now I'm just all about it.
It's funny because I'm like almost the exact same way. Like as a kid, I didn't give a shit about Halloween. Like I think the last time I actually like really dressed up for Halloween was when I was 6 and I was Zorro, which was awesome. And two of my friends both dressed up as Pikachu, which was really funny.
That's awesome.
And then the next year I wasn't even gonna dress up, and then my friend came to my door in his Taekwondo outfit, and I was like, oh hell yeah, that's an easy costume. I'll just do that, and then no one will have to be like, why didn't you dress up? And but then after that, I didn't dress up. I didn't go trick or treating. I liked watching the whatever ABC Family did for Halloween, like always having like Hocus Pocus on and stuff like that. Like I enjoyed partaking in that, but I didn't dress up or go to Halloween parties or go trick or treating or anything like that until like what, like 2 years ago or whatever. Probably when I moved out of my dad's house, and all of a sudden I was like, wait, there's like a whole bunch of fun spooky stuff. Like again, shout out Mikey, because living with him, he was like, dude, you have to embrace fall and everything that fall has, including Halloween. I was like, all right, cool. And then like now there's so much cool spooky stuff, and I like dressing up, and I like all the Halloween movies. Like I still don't really care that much about horror movies, to be honest. Like it's kind of the same way I am with like going to haunted houses or going to like Hollywood Horror Nights at Universal Studios or something. Like I'm like, I know this is all fake, and like at those haunted houses and stuff, like they're not allowed to touch you, and like these movies are all ridiculous. So I'm always just like, I'm not scared because I'm not immersed or whatever. Like I know it's not real.
Mhm.
Um, which was part of why like I don't know if you saw the movie One Missed Call. That movie was really funny to me. Or like Insidious was one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
I haven't seen
It's
either of
just
those.
it's
I've heard
just
of
ridiculous.
Insidious. I haven't heard of the first.
If we're considering
Former.
Cabin in the Woods a horror movie, that was like the first one that I was like, this movie's freaking good.
Cabin in the Woods is a deconstructionist piece. It's
Okay, well, I love that movie.
Yeah, you familiar with what that is? Deconstructionist?
I don't know if I've heard the genre, but through context, I think I can figure it out.
Spaceballs is a deconstructionist piece, kind of
Okay,
taking the tropes and satirizing them, but in a way that isn't disrespectful either to the source material. Like it's
right.
thought
Like you're
out.
not making fun of it; you're just exposing it, but in a not aggressive way.
Exactly. Like
Hmm.
it's like it's a gentleman's way to jest is how I would describe it.
Right.
And you said
Unlike,
Halloween.
would you say like this, like the scary movie franchise is deconstructionist, or is that just parody? Because it's just making fun of them.
It's a little bit of both. I feel like as they go on, I definitely think the first one's really smart, I've only
Hmm.
seen how many are there's like 9, right? I've only seen
I have
2.
no idea. There's
Uh,
probably at least like five.
there's a lot, and I could care less to see them all at this point.
Right.
I've
Well,
only
yeah.
seen the first 2, and I think the first one was pretty smart. Only saw the second one once when I was living in Brooklyn, and if anyone knows about my time in Brooklyn, it's that not much of it is remembered. And so I
Oh,
don't
dude, you
really
lived in Brooklyn?
in college.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, down
Cool,
in
cool.
Brooklyn, New York, New York.
Nice
Yeah,
for
and
college.
so one thing I want to get to, just to clarify for clarification's sake, before we jettison too far into the next segment of the show. When you say Halloween movies, do you mean the Halloween franchise, aka Michael Myers, or just Halloween movies in general?
I was speaking about Halloween movies in general, not about the Halloween franchise, although I've seen the first Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was really cool, and obviously the theme music is amazing.
Right.
Um, and then I think I did what a lot of young people do and watched a video on YouTube that was like a synopsis of all the other ones because I knew that there were a bunch, like at
Yeah.
least five or something, and I was like, there's no way that he just like dies but doesn't die in every movie. So I'm like, what the hell is going on with all these movies? And then I was like, oh, this is actually a pretty cool universe, which I'm realizing now that like these horror movies that make like 90 movies, like the Jason, like the Friday the 13th and Jason and like Hellraiser and stuff, like they have these crazy like lore backstory things. Like the Hellraiser series is one of the craziest series. I've only seen the first movie, but like again, I read about it, and like it's all insane and it all ties together, and it's like a crazy story that like if you're just watching one of the movies, like especially nowadays, like watching Hellraiser or like Nightmare on Elm Street, you'd laugh because the special effects look funny, just because because of how special effects have changed nowadays and how it just looks kind of silly and campy almost. But like those are still like cool movies. But again, like I said before, like and they never like scared me. Except actually, I'm sort of lying. When I was 13, I watched I Know What You Did Last Summer, and while I was watching it, I was like, this movie's not scary. It's pretty cool, but like whatever. But then like every night for like 4 weeks after that, like looking out my window at nighttime, I was like scared. I was like, dude, somebody could just be out there in a fucking trench coat waiting, just waiting for me.
That is
So
really weird.
I feel like it's more like those movies don't scare me while I'm watching them, but if they do a good enough job of like setting up realistic scenarios, like it'll scare me after the movie, if
Yeah,
that
I have
makes
so
sense.
many things to say off that, so I guess we'll just start breaking them down. Doubling back to Mikey, our former drummer, and still great friend. He he kind of was always talking about horror films and seemed to really love it. And I was like, cool, I'm in a band with this guy. I think he's a talented dude. I respect his decision, and I'm in film school right now. So if there was ever a time, now's the time. And I put on Halloween, I think in 2016, and I was like, okay, like I felt something. I wasn't quite engulfed right away though, like because I had watched
Hmm.
it when I was a little kid. Because I tell this story all the time on my other show, but I'll tell it here. Like basically, I remember very vividly when I lived in the Bronx. My neighbors would all ride scooters, bikes on the street, and I would hear them outside. We had those windows that you had a crank roll, and if you've ever been in New York City, there's like the double folding out windows in all those like Bronx duplex houses. And it'd be like summer, and I just want to go outside and play so bad. My parents would be like, "Hey, there's like a lot of great art that is of America, and you need to check it out." So they'd sat me down, and I'd watch like Rocky and Back to the Future and Star Wars and all these films that, like, even though I went on to become a musician, are still like cornerstones of why I think I enjoy creative things as a whole. And of course, when I got a little older, there was like one horror film that was in the batch, and it was Halloween, and I still didn't finish it. But I have a very distinctive memory of my little sister being able to finish it and me not being able to finish it. It was just intense. It was a lot. And
Oh, dude, it's an intense movie.
so then I decided to go and watch Halloween 2 because Mikey's like, they're like the only two that are connected, and Halloween 2 is just as good as Halloween 1, and I honestly think it's a little better. And then I heard that Mikey goes every year if he can and watches Halloween on Halloween night. And I was like, that is so cool. He doesn't even invite anyone. He just does it by himself because he loves it that much. And then he goes to a party, and then he goes to his plans. So then I was like, all right, I'm watching the second one and I'm rewatching this first one. And that's when it hit me. Horror movies are awesome.
Yeah.
They're incredible. And then I think from there, sort of hanging out with like all you guys and stuff, and we had like all those group parties. You know, you used to throw these awesome Halloween parties at your place, and just kind of slowly but surely engulfed me into this season that I kind of overlooked. And
Same.
now it's just like, you know, this year our paths are bringing us to different locations. I wouldn't be able to hang anyways, living with older people in my house just to be safe. So it's fine. You know, you go do your thing, but it's like I still have the festivities to get into on my own. And I, you know, my boy Brando, shout out the Brando critic, sent me a box of Canadian delicacies and seasonal treats. And yeah, I
Whoa.
had ketchup chips the other night, and those were really
Mm,
good. And for the first time in a while. And so like I just have something now for a time of the year when everyone's starting to get a little angry and a little salty and a little like irritated. Like I notice it at my job. Like people are just a little less nicer for no reason. And I'm like, really? Like the weather affects you this much? Do you not understand? Like there's a lot of cool stuff to get into right now. So it's a good time of the year. Some would say it's the most wonderful time of the year. And some wouldn't.
some, I think a lot of people probably wouldn't, but to each their own. I mean,
And then like since this is a music show, I mean, let's not even forget about the fact about how influential horror scoring and music has become to just not only pop culture. Like if you look at the Thriller album, like we don't even have to go so recently, you know,
yeah.
Michael Jackson's Thriller, it's it could be played in a Halloween playlist. I mean, it's got that spooky,
I mean,
darker
it's
undertone.
in my Halloween playlist.
Exactly, as it is in many people's. And John Carpenter obviously
hmm
sort of innovating with the synthesizer in traditional movie scoring and horror movie scoring. And
that one is just so good because it just
yeah,
like it starts with that piano thing that and
right.
which kind of makes it feel eerie, but then it just hits you with that low note, that dum, and then you're
Yeah,
like, holy shit, where did that even just come from? And they always
arguably,
time it perfectly with like it hits the first note and then like that low note comes when like you first see his foot like hit and you're like, oh shit, he's there and he's gonna fucking get her.
yeah, it's such an achievement of like film and music, and arguably the first use of the trap hat we have from the Halloween theme song. Just the tick, 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 you know, it's like very hip hop oriented. And
Right, right.
it even went on to, I believe we wouldn't have synthwave, which is a very cool retro style of music that I love,
Whoa.
which is like, you know, modern EDM ideals and classic rock feels mixed with just like the weird synthesizer dreamy, you know, feels of like back in the day. And it's kind of like retro 80s fusion, like throwback, but it lends itself so much to horror that now all these bands that I love in the synthwave scene, especially the Midnight, one of the premier acts, just put out a horror EP called The Haunt. And it's so John Carpenter inspired. I mean, they started off with that arpeggiation style that John Carpenter kind of became to know. So I mean, people could say that horror is just these silly little throwaway murder films or these crazy gore fests. If you're thinking of like, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or even like these like low budget, like, you know, poltergeisty or paranormal activity, like
Right, right.
possession esque things. But I mean,
Paranormal Activity was a crazy one. Like
I feel like
just the way that it was made. Like I don't know if I've ever watched the whole movie, but just the fact that it's so creative. I mean, like the problem with that movie, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but like the first one was so cool because they did it with, the found footage, like a new way of doing a found footage movie,
yeah,
instead of like the whole like shaky cam Blair Witch thing where it's like, what's going on? Like it was just like set up cameras in a house. Like, so I think they spent like what, like $40,000 making the movie or something like that. And then it
wasn't a
made,
lot.
it
It
made
wasn't
a,
a lot.
a butt ton of movie money after the fact. But it's just like, it was so cool, and then like it was so unfortunate that like all the other Paranormal Activities, which like obviously they were going to make more because of how successful that one was, it was
Yeah.
so like just annoying for me to see that like they were all just the same movie again. I'm like, I know that like how are you really going to like change that much without getting kind of weird or gimmicky or something, but I don't know. It was just like I wish it was just like a one and done and it was just like left as this incredible perfect thing that they made.
Yeah, it was really good. I didn't see any other ones after the first one, but I don't even know how
hmm
many they made, to be honest with you. But yeah,
Well,
what I was gonna say is
Insidious
that
was like part of those movies, so they like branched off into other shit. And Insidious was, in my opinion, if it was a comedy, amazing movie. If it was a horror movie, really not good at all.
hmm Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's just one of those things where I think like horror has a lot of schlock in it, but like it also, because it's so low budget and the creators are always very minimalistically working with the bare essentials to produce the score, produce the film. I think it really helps art push the boundaries forward. I mean, I think you can probably do research, and not that I have, and I probably should have, but again, the beauty of this show is just kind of rolling and talking and seeing where the conversation takes us. But I mean, I feel like, maybe this will be me back in college, but you could probably write a thesis about how independent and low budget filmmaking, specifically around horror and music, has sort of prompted the invention of new creations. And you know what, Andrew? You fill it for a second, because I actually have something that I don't think I can play the video for, but I can show you a new instrument that was invented called the Nightmare Machine, which I think I've shown you before, which was created to score the movie The Witch. And
Mm.
it was created out of efficiency. And you guys definitely
This
got to go
was
look this up.
this was used to score the movie.
It was used to score the movie. Basically, the composer had hired a prop guy, commissioned a prop guy to build him an instrument called the Nightmare Machine, where he could kind of all in one, like, perform, instead of just writing in the music and doing it sort of track by track. He could actually perform it as if he was conducting an orchestra. So here, I'm
Right.
going to share my screen real quick and show you. I think I've shown you this before, but so this is actually an example of what I was talking about, like horror pushing the limits. So right here, if you can see it, you have the prop
Oh
maker who he
wow.
hired, professional
Hmm.
Hollywood prop maker, to craft this instrument that's all in one. And
Right.
let's click in. You can see him bowing right there. He's bowing the scrap metal to kind of stir primal emotions, as he says.
Right.
And he's got all these little knobs and dials, and it's just the most sinister thing ever. And the entire movie was scored on this machine. Have you seen that film?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, it's next level. You could see he has like the bow out there and like the pieces of metal. It's more of a soundscaping device. You're not actually creating like that's a still. You're not actually creating. And look, this is him in the studio performing for the actual
Wow.
practicing for the recording of the actual score for the film, and it's actually insane. Whoop, can't play that. But you can see like right in there.
Wow.
Yeah, man, it's actually ridiculous. Yeah, that's
Oh, great big story. Yeah,
Mark
they make
Corvin.
they do good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the only video I've ever seen of them. I don't know too much about the
I've
channel.
seen I've seen a couple others. They do good stuff. That's cool
All
though.
right,
That's
you know what? We'll
crazy.
subscribe right on air. That's something for the people.
Wow. And you smashed that bell.
You have to smash the bell. I think if you're a content creator and you at all respect what you're doing, you have to smash that bell. Speaking of smashing that bell, guys, if you're enjoying this haphazard, all over the place conversation about all things horror, Andrew, you know what they need to do. So why don't you tell them?
Well, first of all, go change your pants because I'm sure we've been real scary lately because this is a scary episode. So if you haven't yet, at least go get another pair of pants to just be ready because you might need it. But you might as well subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that bell like Chris just
Bing.
did so well. He was so good at it. I'm sure you could see. If you're watching on YouTube, just scroll back, see how good he
That
was. It
might
was
as well be
crazy.
a tutorial, guys.
It might
So
as well be a tutorial. It's that easy. But also, I feel like it wouldn't be that hard for you to navigate from here after this. Once the episode's over, don't get crazy. Get over to Talkin TV and do the same over there. Subscribe, hit the bell, just so that, when Chris wants to
stop it.
talk
You're
about
too
horror
kind.
movies more in depth, then I'm going to let him because I'm going to get scared talking about them. Then you can go over there and listen to him talk about it with his buddy Dom, who probably knows more about movies than anyone I know who's not in the industry.
Yeah, we all wish, but we're not, unfortunately, in the
Yeah.
industry.
But speaking of horror movies, I have a question for you, Chris. What do you think is, well, this is kind of like a multi-leveled question. I feel like it's not so much a question as something I just want to like discuss. Like, what are all these elements that make a horror movie scary? Like, is it more the suspense? Is it more like the startling part? is startling even considered being scary? Like when it's just a jump scare, is that actually scary, or is it just a cheap, way of getting your heart to start racing? Is it a movie that creates a really scary premise and then there's like no quote unquote like startling bits? It's just an unsettling movie. Like, is it gross stuff? Is it monsters? Like, what is it that makes a movie a horror movie as opposed to just like a movie that made me vomit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so you kind of asked a few questions in there. So, what is it that makes a horror movie a horror movie? I think that can be defined by two different ways: the emotional state it puts you in, and then the subject matter, the content, right? If it's ghouls and goblins,
Mm-hmm.
could be fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, or it could be, you know, kind of like some creepy type, like scary murder type thing. Which not that I have any examples with ghouls and goblins. I just know that they're kind of associated with Halloween. So maybe that's a bad example.
Right,
Maybe
but
I just
like
got
I
myself
know
in a
what you're saying.
foot.
Like, what's the
But
difference between like there's a difference between watching a movie that's scary because Michael Myers is chasing his sister with a knife, and then there's a different kind of scary that's not necessarily horror with like a movie like Red Eye where she's just on a plane with a guy who's trying to kill her and she doesn't know what's going on.
right, exactly, with the pocket full of magic for the flight, and you
Shout
know.
out.
Yeah, so I think, but what makes it scary if it does fall under those very loose categories we defined, is the writing. I think before I was a horror fan, or before I could stomach horror really, um, my favorite parts of horror films were that first 15 to 20 minutes. The first sequence where you kind of get to see Timmy and he's picked on at school and he's crushing on the girl across the street and he comes home and his dad doesn't pay attention to him and his mom's working so much but she really wants to, and he just drowns himself in his favorite comic book, and you kind of get immersed into like this, like, just people story. You get attached to this character who you're going to
Mm-hmm.
later then go on to see poor Timmy running for his life from the slasher. But I think the only reason we care about Timmy in the first place is because they did a good job, the filmmakers, kind of immersing you into his story and getting you on his team, because
Right.
I find myself rooting a lot in horror movies for a specific side. Usually it's
Mm-hmm.
the people, unless they're like a terrible garbage human being and there's a twist at the end where you realize, like, oh, this person summoned this demon on their own because they wanted to mess with their roommate. They deserve it
Right.
then. So
Right.
now screw this person who I was rooting for all film. And so those are my favorite parts of the film before I could tolerate the scares. And now that I
Right.
can
I would
tolerate the scares,
I would say that part of that too is that they make characters that are relatable so that you kind of feel so that it's not so much that you're caring about Timmy, you feel like you are Timmy. Like you're like, yeah, like I do all that stuff. I have parents that don't understand me and I like maybe it's not comics, like I come home and I just try to like chill out by myself and then now all of a sudden you're like, "Oh my god, Timmy's being chased by a serial killer and this serial killer's about to kill his friend and Timmy has to like do something. Like would I do something? I don't know." And then you're just like, "What's Timmy going to do?"
right, exactly. And it's just the investment that they make in writing the character is then they invest in you as you're watching it because they make this charming, charismatic character that you want to root for.
Mhm.
And so it's the relatability, right? And so that was my favorite part of horror before I could tolerate and stomach the scares, the psychological torture that some of these films honestly do put you through. I'm talking to you, Saw, which is a great movie, but it's like that's a messed up film the first time you see it at any age. Anyways, now my favorite part of horror films are the exact same part because I understand the importance of them. And so many horror films that I've watched now kind of live or die in that first opening sequence. Because if I don't care about these characters and it's already low budget and it's already going to look terrible, I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to forgive it. Unlike, I just watched this movie Host, right, which is a Shudder original. Have you heard of this film?
No.
I watched it literally last night at the time of this recording. It takes
Came
place
out
over
this year?
Zoom. What's that? Yeah, it came
It
out
ca
this year. It,
Okay.
it takes place over Zoom. Basically, you know how people during this quarantine, it's set in the quarantine, the pandemic of 2020. Don't say the actual name of the virus. YouTube doesn't like that. Not kidding. Um, but so it's set in the pandemic, quarantine 2020, and basically, you know how people were having those happy hours to kind
Mhm.
of like hang out with their friends and whatnot when
Yep.
we were really in the thick of it.
Right.
And so it lands on Haley, and it's Haley's turn to set the theme of the happy hour because they were doing so many of them that they needed to spice it up.
Right.
And so she's like, let's have a seance and let's summon a demon. I know this, I forget what they call her.
What a medium.
Medium. Thank you. I know this medium, and she's never done it over Zoom before, but she'd be down to do it over Zoom. So obviously, supernatural things occur, and crazy demon gets summoned. It's a very predictable script, but they shot it all over Zoom, and the people felt real. They gave the actors room to improvise. The actors were literally carrying around their MacBooks, so they had a
Wow.
portable webcam, and it felt real. Like they felt like real people. So even though it was just them sitting in front of a computer for the majority of the film, it felt like I was watching a movie. And I think that all comes from the setup and how they kind of like explain to you like they're just working with what they have, they're just trying to get by and keep sane in this quarantine, and they're going
Hmm.
crazy, so that's why they're gonna do something crazy, even if it is just for laughs.
Right.
So I think that's important in horror movies.
Right.
Books,
I
whatever.
mean, right. It's interesting because like there's like I'm thinking of the horror movies that I've seen, like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, or even like the lower budget ones like Teeth or something like that. Like they set up this whole thing where it's like, all right, here's most of them anyway that start this way. Like here's the normal life. Like here's what life's supposed to look like. Because in like 20 minutes, stuff's not going to look like that. So we need you to know that when this dude gets sucked into the middle of his bed, that's not something that normally happens in this world. Like that's bad. And I think that like that's why a lot of those movies, like I think if you're someone who doesn't watch a lot of them, like you can poke holes in them being like, oh, they're all the same. It's just like kids in a small town that deal with a scary something, either whether it's a scary human or a scary monster or whatever. Like it's just some kids dealing with something scary. Like that's what a lot of the popular horror movies are when you look at them generally. But I think part of the reason of that is because that's the easiest way to get someone immediately involved and invested in these kids, because like you don't have to always just explain like, okay, here's where they live, this is what they do every day. You just go, hey, this kid's 17, lives in Maine, and he's a high school kid. And you're like, cool, I've seen that kind of kid before. Let's get into the scary shit. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like one of those things where good writing is even more important in low budget slash genre films, because
Mm-hmm.
you could have something like I just watched, and I don't want to make this fully a movie podcast because I do have a few other things I kind of wanted to ask you,
Yeah,
more seasonal
me
type things.
me too.
But I just watched Fargo. Have you ever seen Fargo?
No.
1996. You've heard of it, I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oscar winning film. So many people are crazy about it. I didn't really like it that much, but I
It's a
think
murder investigation, right?
it's a murder investigation. All hell breaks loose. A very young William H. Macy, kind of like really coming into his own as like a superstar. He was like one of those '90s guys, and I didn't care for it too much. It's not my type of thing, but that type of
Mm-hmm.
script had so many more eyeballs on it than let's say even the biggest horror film of that year, because it wasn't of any genre. It was more of like a relatable people piece. So whereas
Right.
I didn't like it, and I honestly kind of thought it was a little sloppy, it still got more chances and more eyeballs. So for you to be in an even more niche style of filmmaking with already budgetary restrictions and just a smaller audience, like you got to be on your A game. And so that's why like I think people who are like diehard horror fans, I think they get art in a way that like kind of like, not normies, because I think everyone likes movies, but like regular moviegoers kind of
Mm-hmm.
don't get, because it's like you got to take the good with the bad if you're a horror fan, because you understand that it's like they're usually labors of love, and you're just not working with much. So I kind of respect like being someone who I think DIY toured for so long, and we booked our own tours, right? And no one came to us for our contract. We went out there and we earned it. You know what I mean? Like I think for go-getters like us, you can kind of respect horror and
Mm-hmm.
niche genre films, even small sci-fi productions for that matter. Like look at A24 as a studio. That's another reason why I think as I got older and more entrepreneurial, this medium, this type of year, like, and the creative properties and products have spoken to me more too, outside of just them being entertaining and fun and seasonal.
Right. Right. Now, one final question before we move on from movies. Do
Sure.
you consider thriller movies to be scary movies? Like something like Red Eye or like Last House on the Left, where it's not like an element of like a monster or even like like some supernatural guy showed up to kill me or something like that, or like in whatever it's called, freaking. Well, I guess I Know What You Did Last Summer could kind of be considered a thriller too. Like in Last House on the Left or
Sure.
something, it's just like she's being abducted and chased down by these criminals and stuff. Like that's something that could really happen. As much as in the movie, it's probably a bit more dramatized or whatever, but like that kind of stuff happens. So like, is the does the fact that something could really happen make it a thriller and no longer horror, or is it just that like thriller movies are more about like suspense and less about like scary stuff?
All right, yeah. So let me preface this because I do have an answer, but I think for our audience who, when we do these episodes with no guest or no clear topic, kind of get to know us in a different way, right? Like, so I do have
Mm-hmm.
this other podcast, right? Talkin' TV. Go check it out. I love doing it just as much as I love doing this show where we talk about film and movies, but I'm no movie buff by any means. I am at first and always will be a musician. I went to film school as a way to sort of find some purpose, and it was like a creative type of school. And then I ended up falling in love with something completely new because there's obviously music in it, and it's creative and artistic in a whole nother way. So, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm no expert, and I will never claim to be. Just so everyone knows. So I would say they're like first cousins. They're hanging out on Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
They get each other really thoughtful and meaningful presents. There's probably a family group chat. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they cross over, even in like regards to like, hey, I need a ride to the doctors, and like my dad or mom isn't around, so can you come? But I don't think that they are going home to the same house at night. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
They're
But
picking each other
people,
up from the airport, but they're not
yeah,
best men in
exactly.
each
My
other's
first cousin
wedding.
Michael, when I was in LA last year and went to Halsey's Halloween party, yeah, I just did that, and I don't care. Um,
We'll
he
excuse
picked
the
me
name
up.
drop because it was a Halloween party.
Exactly. That's why. That's why. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, he my first cousin picked me up, point and case. And so it's one of those things where like there is a popular horror podcast that Andrew and I stumbled upon when we were doing some research, which I
Oh
hope we
yeah,
get
yeah,
to in regards to this show one day, called
yeah.
The Last Podcast on the Left, and that is an all horror and
Spooky stuff.
conspiratorial and
Yeah. But
supernatural
even but like horror
show.
movies, but also real life horror things.
So they chose that name, which again is why I say that would cross over. But I don't care for those types of scripts. Like I was talking actually today to my mom, and she was asking me like, "Well, what did you think about Fargo?" And I was like, "There wasn't enough lasers in it." Like I really don't care for people stories, man, because people kind of annoy me a lot. So I don't want to watch a good people story.
Dude, I
Show
was
me good
just
people
talking
first.
about this with Scott.
Yeah,
We were just on because Scott and I were doing this thing where I've seen Dexter, he's seen Peaky Blinders. This is like sort of a sidetrack, but like barely.
fine.
Um, and
Go
so
for
we
it.
were watching one season of each, like one after the other. And we just finished Peaky Blinders, and now we're still going with Dexter since it's a longer show. And I was realizing that like Peaky Blinders is a great show, but like it's just like I don't like it as much as I like Dexter. And Scott and I were talking about it, and he was like, "Well, Peaky Blinders is more of a character show because it's all about the Shelbys and like how they." Have you seen Peaky Blinders?
The first 3 seasons, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's all about the Shelbys and how they're just making a company and trying to build themselves up and take
Yeah.
out
Some would
whoever is
say
in
a
their way and
shell
stuff like.
company.
Sure, some would say that, I guess.
I mean, they're
But
they're embezzling and they're
yeah. I know. Yeah, they're trying to be legitimate, but most of the time they're not. They're trying to, whatever. But like every season, it's pretty much the same thing. It's like they're trying to be legitimate. Some bad guy is also trying to take them out or stop them doing whatever, and it's always the same thing. But every season, the characters evolve and change and go through different, experiences which kind of change them, but the stories are kind of the same. But then on Dexter, like as much as the characters grow, like the characters are all pretty much set and the same, and it's just the experiences and the stories change. And I think I'm like you, where like, yeah, I like character growth, but I want to see cool stuff going on and I want to see interesting events and not just, oh, how is main character going to deal with this now as opposed to how he dealt with the exact same scenario 3 years ago. I'm like, I kind of don't care about that as much as I care about different scenarios.
yeah, I think your best. pieces of cinema have both.
Well, yeah, obviously you need both, but I think that a lot of people do focus on one or the other,
Yeah,
especially in TV shows.
yeah, I agree. I think especially in comparing, Peaky Blinders is of the aughts and Dexter is sorry, it's of the teens and Dexter is of the aughts, and so it's like just TV changed so much, and that's a whole nother
Hmm.
podcast. But I see what you're saying, and I
Right.
agree with what you're saying. I only stopped watching Peaky Blinders, by the way, guys. It's not because I don't like it. It's because I like to watch TV laying down in bed, and their accents are really thick, and I can't really read subtitles as well as I thought laying sideways in bed. So
Listen, there were a couple times I was like, Scott, we got to run that back and put the subtitles on because I
yeah,
literally have no idea what Arthur is saying
he
half of
was
the
a
time
big
he
problem.
speaks.
Peggy was honestly the only one who I'm like, damn, I can understand you all the time.
You mean
The rest
Polly?
of them are, oh yeah, Polly. Sorry, Peggy. Oh my God.
That's
Yeah,
cool. That's
but
cool.
yeah, man. So while we're sort of rounding the corner into the shall I say, last segment of our show here today, I kind of wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite things to do outside of watching or playing things? Because again, we're going to be doing our favorite spooky video game episode next week. What are some of your favorite things to do during this time of year that you can't do any other time of the year? I'm talking about eating some seasonal delicacies. Um,
Okay.
what's your favorite type of pumpkin spice if you're into that? I mean, I'm sure I
Okay.
know this, but
Okay.
like, try and even tell me something I don't know. Go, go, go.
Okay. But before I do that, I just want to give the quickest shout out because I could talk for an entire hour about it. I just want to say Over the Garden Wall might be my favorite fall spooky themed thing in the last 10 years. That's all I want to say.
Gotcha. And you know
It's
what?
amazing.
When we get sponsors, that would be such a smooth way to introduce the sponsor. I could talk all day about it, but real quick, I just gotta tell you guys about Quit, the self-brushing toothbrush.
Oh
Like, you know
my
what I'm
god.
saying? Not
Yeah,
sponsored by
exactly.
Quit,
Yeah.
but
Listen, I
I
could
can't
talk about him
wait.
for an entire episode, but let me just
Yeah.
mention Manscaped real quick.
Oh God, that would be such a sponsor that would just not represent you and I at all in the slightest, but they do
Listen,
sponsor
guys,
so
I
many
just want to
podcasts.
take a quick moment to mention Raid Shadow Legends and how we're gonna play it.
God, another one that I don't even. That would be a weird knock on my door.
Chris and I are writing a book solely to get it on audible.com, which is what I want to talk to you about real quick.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Creator codes. Not sponsored by
Anyway,
any of those yet. Anyways, go,
Over the Garden Wall is
go.
amazing. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Besides stuff to watch and or play, um, I mean, I love apple cider like a lot. Like like the good apple cider you get in the nice they never you can get it in a gallon, but I feel like a gallon is it's just a lot. You should get them by the half gallon. Just trust me of cider, like Ziegler's or any of the farms that are local. You know, I can't name all of them. I don't know where you're listening from. I could just make up a name and you'd believe me that it's a farm. You
You
know,
talking alcoholic or non-alcoholic or no preference?
non-alcoholic, non-alcoholic. I mean,
Okay.
if you really want to, you can, but you can get alcoholic cider all the time. You can just go
Yeah,
get
you
Angry
don't need
Orchard, but
alcohol. It's fun.
that's not the same. I want I'm talking about the dark cider that's you can't see through it. That kind of apple
Mm.
cider is what I'm talking about.
All right, the dark cider of the force.
Yep, I love that. I like that too, I
That'd be a
guess.
good
Yeah.
cider brand name.
Dark cider of the force.
Yeah, like a Halloween movie themed cider company.
Oh, that's the whole company is just that. It's not
Like
one of the
like
ciders that a drink
like
company makes.
yeah, like really forced puns. That's like a double
Dude, you could
smoked
call
apple
that
cider.
it's forced brewing company.
Forced brewing. That's awesome,
Nobody
dude.
steal that. That's ours. I'm going to
Uh,
apply for the copyright literally as soon as we're done recording. So by the time this
yeah.
airs, it'll be through. So you're out of luck.
Don't worry, YouTube has us covered on all intellectual properties that we develop.
Um, let's see. I love pumpkin pie. It's pretty much the only pie I like. I don't really like apple pie or any of the other fruit pies. I just like pumpkin pie.
Okay. Whipped cream on top or no?
Absolutely. And if I can help it, fresh out the oven.
Okay. Vanilla ice cream or no?
No. No,
right?
that's too
That's what I'm
much. It's too
saying.
much. It's too much.
What I'm saying.
Listen, it's
Yes,
not
dude.
bad if someone hands me a plate and it's already got the ice cream on it. I'm not going to be like, get this fucking ice cream off my pie. I'll eat
Mm,
it and it's going to be good. But if I'm just doing it, I just want to go to my mom's house, have her slice me a nice slice, put it in the oven for like 3 minutes, take it out,
sure.
cover that shit in whipped cream, like drown it in whipped
Drench
cream,
it.
and then send it my way, and I'm good. I'm a happy
Pumpkin pie
camper.
might be the best pie of all the pies.
I would agree. I'm sure that a lot of people wouldn't. I'm pretty sure apple pie is like America's pie. You know, it's like the Cowboys. But
I'd say maybe
uh,
second to none only than a key lime.
I don't
And
know if I've ever really had a good key lime pie.
we're gonna have to change that real soon. Text me
Okay,
your
okay.
address.
I never like. I mean, like apple picking's okay. I've never really been into that. I like fall like fall farm stuff, sometimes a hayride, like a corn maze, something cool like that. I don't mind that. Like a nice cool walk by like some trees that are fall colored. That's nice. But like I'm not into like the haunted hay rides or going to haunted houses. I think it's dumb. Personally, I see the appeal, and I'm not saying that if you like haunted houses, you're dumb, because I don't think that. But all I'm saying is that every time I've experienced a haunted house, or like I said before, a Hollywood Horror Nights, I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, unless I was somewhere where they literally could abduct you and take somewhere you don't know and then like fuck with you, then yeah, I'm gonna be scared, because I'm like, that's kind of scary. But if I'm just walking around and there's people dressed like the guys from The Purge and they're just like getting up in your face and just going like I'm just like, okay, like
Yeah,
I
I
don't
hear
I
that.
don't see how that's scary.
I'm going to my first one of those ever, actually. Um, as far as I can remember, really. I mean, I don't think it counts when you're like 8 or 9, and your parents take you with a bunch of friends and stuff. So we'll
Hmm.
see. We'll see how I feel about it. It's more
Well,
for I'm definitely right now
let me
going more
know.
for the people and less for the experience, but
Right. And that's
I'm
pretty
going
much
in with
why
an
I
open mind.
went to Hollywood Horror Nights, is because all my friends were going. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Hmm.
And then I'm there and like, just like, why are people scared of this? And then, like, at Hollywood Horror Nights, just a quick 10-second tangent about this. They're like, oh, yeah, there's all these themed haunted houses, like The Walking Dead and whatever movies came out that year or some shit. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then you get into this haunted house and like, it looks really cool. Like, it looks like the show, but everyone's in a single file line going through the same spots, and it was one of those things that was just so like obvious. Like everything was obvious. Like you're walking through the haunted house and I'm like, oh look, there's a hole in the wall, and behind that hole is a curtain. I would be real scared if a hand were to pop out of that curtain covering the hole in the wall, and then you walk up to the hole and it goes whoosh, and you're like, a hand just came out of the hole in the wall covered by a curtain. I didn't see that coming for a second. I'm so scared. And
Did
it's
you do
just
these
like,
when you were on tour or something?
yeah, I did it. Well, yeah, we did it when we were on tour.
That's what I figured. It
I was
sounds
like,
like a
this
good
is
group to
freaking
do that
stupid.
with, though, at least.
Also, I'm just gonna bring up the fact that the reason why we did that, Tyler Wilson, I'm calling you out right now. You were like, let's do it. Okay. Then we all bought tickets for the one in LA while we were in Orlando, which were $50. And he's like, guys, we all bought the wrong tickets. We have to return those and buy these ones for Orlando, which were $100. And I'm like, when am I gonna get the $50 back though? And then it took like 5 days for the $50 to come back. So I basically spent like $150 to go to a shitty Halloween horror night. And I'm never gonna let Tyler forget it. Just had to bring it up again. I
Wow.
don't think he listens to every episode anyway, so I'm sure I'm gonna get away with this. But
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't, but happy
and
birthday
I've
to Parker.
forgiven him, but I'm never gonna forget it.
Yeah, totally. Nice, man. So anything else? We have had some good Halloween parties. That's at least as far as I can remember.
True. I have had a couple lit Halloween parties at the house I live at. Too bad
Yeah.
we can't do it this year, but hopefully next year things are different.
Yeah. I wonder
What
what we'll
about
do for
you?
New Year's.
What
Are
are
you gonna
what do
be
you like? What?
are you gonna be up in Spooky Salem for New Year's, you think?
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can bring a little October to January this year.
Yeah, we'll see.
How amazing
We'll
would a
see.
costume party New Year's Eve party be?
Listen, a
That is
Halloween New Year's Eve party is a really good idea, and I'm stealing it. So
we have to do that. Halloween
we'll
New
do that.
Year's party is Oh, sorry, go
Listen,
ahead.
there's probably 12 people who were lucky enough to be at a party at my house that Chris has thrown. So like it wouldn't be the first time that you've thrown a party at my house.
Sure, yeah. And I was gonna say Halloween New Year's Eve party is my favorite
Wait,
Netflix Adam Sandler film.
that was wasn't that a New Year's Eve party that you hosted at my house?
Yeah. Chris's New Year's Eve party at Andrew's place
Mm-hmm.
2
Classic.
years ago.
Classic.
Yep. Good
Those are
times, man. All
good
right, man. Well,
times. Good
speaking
times.
of time, time is
Wait,
no longer.
you didn't tell me what you like to do in the fall besides watch movies and stuff.
That's about it, man. I'm a one note kind of guy. I'm
It's
just kidding.
scary movies,
Oh
different colored
man,
leaves. I'm
dude, what are you
pretty
talking
good.
about? I spoke about it all episode. That'd be so stupid. No, I like to go on hikes. I really actually enjoy working at my job because I get to drive around on a golf course and
Huh? You
just I've been
like your
observing
job?
the way that the leaves have been changing, and it's been really nice, especially because like we have so many friends in California, and I'll talk to them how they have to force themselves to get into a seasonal mood, and I'm just like, I couldn't not feel festive if I tried. Like I'm out on a
Exactly.
golf course all day with a
Yeah, man.
bunch of trees.
We've got three pumpkins on the front porch of my house. Two of those pumpkins have bites taken out of them. Like these squirrels are just showing up eating our pumpkins.
That's hard. I actually
It's
that's
hard
cool.
not to feel in the mood when you walk outside and you're like,
Yeah.
there goes a squirrel feasting on a pumpkin.
Right. Yeah, man. And I would be lying if I said that I hadn't been reaching a little deeper into my pantry for the more chai and pumpkin flavored teas. So,
Oh,
you know.
you gotta reach deep for those.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely stay in rotation until like February, but like once it gets warmer,
Why?
they
Why did you
they
say it like that?
just trying new things, man. But yeah, I
February.
mean, and honestly, it's like a lot of like hanging out with people and doing festive events, which I guess I kind of do have a little bit of doing a social
Right.
distance haunted hayride
Right.
car ride soon, so that'll be something. But we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like most of it is just I'm excited to watch stuff. Like I know you can watch that stuff any time of year, but it's not the same. Like watching Over the Garden Wall is always good, but it hits different between like October 15th and October 31st.
Exactly, it hits differently. But what I will say is like I want to rewatch Alien, but I won't rewatch
Mm.
Alien right now because I think that is a horror film that you can watch any time of the year. Whereas you can watch Halloween any time of the year, and I'll do that when I'm feeling a little nostalgic for the
Mm-hmm.
fall.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's like the one film I'll go to. But like I feel like
Right.
Friday the 13th or A Nightmare on
Mm-hmm.
Elm Street, those are better
Exactly.
suited for now.
Exactly. Like you want to watch Alien in like July or something like that, and then you
Yeah,
want to watch like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street on Halloween, and then you want to wait, and then you skip November, maybe watch like Helter Skelter in November or something like that, or Children of the Corn, and then in December
yeah,
you
yeah.
watch stuff like The Thing and like The Shining when it's all snowy out, and you're like, yeah, snow can be
Totally.
scary.
I hear that. That's an astute not observation. You didn't really observe anything, but statement. A very astute statement. I don't know why they haven't put those two words together before. I
Listen,
actually think it'd be nice.
they call me Astute Andrew.
Astute Andrew. I like that. Andrew,
No
man,
one's called me that ever in my life, but it could start now.
I think we need to be a little less trepidatious about sort of just rolling and talking with a loose topic because I
That's a
thought this was
big
a very
word.
delightful conversation.
Mm, I agree.
Delightful.
I had a good time. I'm excited for next week.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed myself. Um,
Am I alone in my praise? Do you share my assessment?
I I hope so because I thought this was a really good episode. And so, with that being said, Andrew, we have a backlog of a ton of really good episodes. At least I like to think. Not to toot my own horn, which I definitely got to get a horn now to just to like little toot, even though that would be a
Dude,
little dynamic banter.
that would be pretty funny. I don't want to toot my own horn, but
Yeah. But where can the people find us and interact with us and keep up to date with all that it is in our newfound pledge to stop? This show doesn't want to die, and God damn it, we're not going to let it die. So where can the people help us keep nursing this thing back to full health, if you will?
well, Chris, I'm glad you asked. If you're here watching us on YouTube, then it really helps us out if you subscribe and like and hit the bell and all of that stuff. Even honestly, I dare you to share it somewhere with one person at least, just anywhere. I'm
Do it.
daring you. So
Do
if
it.
you're not a complete wimp, you'll share it. Anyway, if you're not watching it, you could listen on all of the DSPs, aka digital streaming platforms. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, you know, all of those ones that have podcasts on there. We're there. Probably. I'm sure there's a couple I haven't heard of. There's probably a lot I haven't heard of, but we're on almost all of them. Check us
Yeah,
out,
absolutely.
subscribe, like us. Listen, if you're on a site that lets you, rate us, preferably 5 stars, because like, listen, if not for the content, just for the vitality that you guys have given this show, because like Chris said, like we pretty much like went on a weekend trip without feeding the goldfish being the show, and this goldfish was just like, bitch, I eat with filter food or something, I don't know, but I'm still alive. And we're like, great,
Yeah.
because we love you, we're sorry.
By the way, we always
So
feed our fish. Always feed your fish.
we
Always.
always feed our fish. Honestly, I'm so good at feeding my fish that when I was 7, my fish died of constipation. That's how well fed they were. So
That's almost like another issue, but that's good at least. Yeah, so everything Andrew said, guys, we appreciate the support. Again, that is at Talkin Podcast. Talkin spelled Talkin. No G, but OGs allowed, and everyone else, because we don't want to put you in a box. You define yourself and no one else. And I also have another show, guys, called Talkin TV. It's
he
TV.
does. I've been on 2 episodes.
Andrew's been on 2 episodes. You guys can check it out anywhere that you like on all the major DSPs and as well on YouTube. Andrew's going to be co hosting a monthly show that will be collaborating between both of our shows and here on the Talkin Network called No NPCs Allowed, which is basically a show where Andrew and I share our love for video games and their effect on pop culture. And of course, the first episode where we're debuting Andrew as the official co host is going to be
This is
with.
how much I love video games, all right?
He's got
These are on my
Funkos, baby.
desk.
We're going to be talking about horror games, and it's going to be next week on the show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. The main goal is to grow the YouTube channel. I know a lot of you guys listen on audio, and we do appreciate that. And we're not saying stop, but if you want to see your boys succeed, well, YouTube is a little more generous in the amount of money that they give to creators once they build something up. And that's the
Yeah,
plan here.
listen,
Build
all
something up.
you have to do, listen, we're not saying you have to watch us because, like, I get it. You just listened. Why would you watch the same episode you just listened to? I get it. But what you can do is go to your browser, put it on, hit, the volume all the way to 0 and go to sleep.
Yeah.
You
Either
don't
way,
have, you don't even have to look at the screen.
right. Either way, like I always say, people think I'm kidding. It's actually true. There are legitimately hundreds of listens each week, and so that is why we will not let
Listen,
this show die.
it's
So
hard for
thank
me to believe it, but Chris doesn't lie to me like that.
no, it's ridiculous actually, and it's humbling. And so thank you
Yeah,
guys for being here. We appreciate all the support as always.
and we see you.
We see you. New
We see
episodes every
you. But
Monday.
also talk to us. We want to hear from you.
Right. Hit up the
Hit us,
IG,
hit us up.
Facebook,
Hit
Twitter.
up hit up our personals too.
Yeah, exactly. Her personal's right on screen. Anyways, Andrew, do you have like a final message for the people tonight?
Go watch Over the Garden Wall and try to find my Halloween playlist on Spotify because I'm really proud of it.
And stay sweet.
And stay sweet.
Stay sweet, guys.